Emisión.net.
Hello again and welcome to Letter from England, broadcasting from AC Press and the Spanish Evangelical Alliance. The top story this week looks at the situation of sex trafficking in Spain, the new slavery, and a growing business. There are 45,000 prostitutes in Spain, or should that be 400,000? 90% of them are exploited and are working as prostitutes against their will, or is that true of only 10%? The trouble is that there are no official figures or studies produced on the sex trafficking of women from other countries to Spain, and numbers vary wildly depending on the group which is giving them. Abolitionists bump up the noughts, regulationists knock them down. Sexual exploitation is just beginning to be talked about in Spain, and groups like Stop the Traffic, although they've been doing so for some time, are now getting the government and the media to start to sit up and take notice. There is an invisible world behind the facade of what might very loosely be called normal prostitution. Police investigation, court rulings, victims' testimony and prison sentences leave no room for doubt. In Spain today there are women who are bought and sold and forced to have sex on the street, in flats or in brothels, against their will. Some are kept under lock and key and their every move is controlled by others. Some are beaten or raped until they conform. Threats are made against their families back home in Romania, Russia, Nigeria, or wherever they come from. Even the lowest figures mentioned by the United Nations and the Spanish authorities would suggest that thousands of women are virtual slaves, seen and even described as fresh meat by the bosses or gangs that own them. They sign their lives away to those who are going to exploit them. They sign contracts which say things like, "I promise to pay the sum of $40,000. I promise not to break the rules and to say nothing to the police. If I break these rules, my madam has the right to kill me and my family. My life is worth the amount of money I owe my madam. I confirm this has been explained to me in my language and that this contract will be destroyed when I have paid back the total amount." The police have dozens of such documents. Pieces of paper with writing in very poor English, in capital letters, and with spaces for the woman to write her name and put her life in the hands of a gang that will bring her to Spain from wherever. She becomes a slave for as long as it takes her to pay back the $40,000 or the amount that's agreed that they are charging her for the journey. A total like that would take her at least 5 years to repay. Now, prostitution has changed greatly in Spain in the last 15 years. It used to be either a very marginalized market or a luxury one. But the arrival of immigrants has increased the opportunities available. More women, prettier women, younger women, more exotic women, and cheaper women. Anyone can pay €30 for half an hour with one of them. Between 85 and 90% of prostitutes in Spain today are foreigners, according to police estimates. And the new market has proved successful. Demand has soared and business is booming. And the people running the business need a constant turnover of women. So they've developed trafficking networks to provide the brothels with a ready supply of prostitutes. It's exactly the same system as that used to import tomatoes. Someone collects them, someone else distributes them, someone transports them, and then somebody sells them. The police hear the traffickers say things like, "I've got 3 kilos of meat," meaning 3 women aged between 18 and 25 who can be found work almost anywhere. Most of these women come from one of a dozen or so countries for purely commercial reasons. Poverty at home, organized crime, ethnic traits which Spaniards find attractive, and easy entry. Since the Spanish authorities started insisting on the visa for Colombians, for instance, they have stopped arriving. Now, of the prostitutes, they say that 58% come from Latin America, especially Brazil and Colombia, 35% are from Eastern Europe, especially Romania and Russia, and the rest are from Africa. That's a quote from a police report from 2007 on sexual trafficking and exploitation in Spain. There are very few Spaniards. Asian prostitutes, mostly Chinese, tend to work in flats rather than brothels. Although some of them know they're coming to Spain to work in that way and consider it a better option and better paid than cleaning stairs, for example, most of them don't know exactly what awaits them. Sometimes they're completely deceived, says Carlos Bodran, a police officer with 20 years' experience in the fight against sex trafficking. He says a woman arrives thinking she's going to work as a waitress, cleaner or secretary, and once she's here, she's forced to work in a club for 12 or 13 hours a day, having sex for money. And then there are other types of deception. Some women who know they're coming to be prostitutes think they'll work when and how they choose, but on landing in Spain they find that they have no power to make those decisions. If they refuse, then the gangs use the same methods on them as they use with those who are utterly deceived. The prostitutes are bought and sold and moved from club to club to make as much money out of them as they can, so that they don't make friends and so that customers get as much variety as possible. An advert found on the island of Fuerteventura for a brothel, for instance, made as its great claim that they changed all their sex workers every 20 days. The list of crimes committed against prostitutes makes horrific reading and includes torture, death threats against them and their families, rape, and heavy fines for overrunning the allotted time with a client. Most prostitutes don't speak Spanish and are completely at the mercy of their pimps. José Nieto, another police officer, says there are very young girls with no education who have never left their homes before. While Rocío Nieto, who chairs a group trying to help prostitutes, says they're controlled very carefully so that it is very difficult for them to escape and press charges. An ex-prostitute who works with the group speaks of the fear felt by the women. They're scared of the pimp who might beat them, of the police who might deport them, and of going back to their countries. Sometimes, she says, even their own parents, boyfriends or brothers are involved in selling the girl. What is undeniable is that such slavery exists in Spain. What no one knows is how many people are enslaved. So what of Spanish society's view of all of this? Well, most people prefer not to talk about it, while those who go to prostitutes don't stop to think that these women might be suffering exploitation. Nieto says there is a high level of tolerance in Spain of the fact that human beings are imported here like pieces of furniture. It's a new type of slavery, she says, to which we're all contributing. Another ex-prostitute says, some clients show interest in you and ask you about your life, but not many. Thank you for listening to Letter from England, broadcasting at emission.net each week. Goodbye for now.
Emisión.net